Talking about that, global warmists, they tell us, listen to the experts. But what if those experts are wrong? And again and again. Now, it's not just that so many predictions of doom turn out fake, like this one in 2007 from Tim Flannery, later our climate change commissioner.
Even the rain that falls isn't actually going to fill our dams and our river system.
4 years ago, the Australian Energy Market Operator told us not to worry. It predicted stable supply of electricity despite all these closures of coal-fired power generators. Yet this week it warned, whoops, in fact, New South Wales now face blackouts if the giant Eraring coal-fired station closes planned in 2027. Honestly, it's like a giant game of make-believe, you know, make-believe we can get rid of 2/3 of our power and no worries, and make-believe that little Australia can thereby stop a global warming that we must make-believe will destroy us. I mean, it's a joke. But credit to Federal Labor Minister Tim Ayres, who has now admitted under questioning from National Senator M.Canavan that, OK, Australia can't actually change the climate.
Does Australia have control or any significant control over the world's climate?
That is the truth. Australia by itself, Senator,
I'm just asking
Australia
for an answer.
by itself does not determine the global climate. Australia by itself, if it's only about action in Australia, that doesn't work.
But what Ayres still won't admit is that the rest of the world isn't joining us in slashing emissions either. I mean, just have a look how the world's biggest emitter, China, has ramped up its emissions. India the same, Africa and Asia also increasing. Well, little Australia pretends to save the planet by wrecking our countryside, like I showed you last night. Now bulldozing all these trees in this part of New South Wales to make way for big transmission towers for even bigger wind generators. Meanwhile, knocking dozens of young birds there out of their nests, leaving them to be now rescued by a mudgy vet. Joining me is regular Tuesday commentator Nationals MP M.Canavan, who you just saw in action, the former Resources Minister. Matt, well done with your questioning, but just going to that answer you got that Australia can't change the climate, and meanwhile, of course, you and I have noted so many times, huge emitters like China and India sure aren't even trying to. What's your conclusion then?
Well, I think there's only two conclusions here, Andrew. Either Australia does do what the government says we can do and stop bushfires and cyclones and all these terrible things, or the government's just completely fibbing. The Labor Party is completely talking out of both sides of their mouth, and they're saying one thing to constituents, to voters in their advertisements, and they're saying a completely another thing when they get pressured on this. So that answer that Senator Tim Ayres mentioned or responded to was a question of mine where I put to him a quote that that a judge had made in a federal court case released in July. Judgment came down in July. That case involved a group of Torres Strait Islanders suing the Commonwealth government for saying they didn't protect them against climate change. They had a duty of care, they said, on climate change. And so the Commonwealth government had to respond to the court, and the judge, Justice Wigney, summarised the Commonwealth's position by saying that in the Commonwealth's view, they had no control over the impacts of climate change on Torres Strait Islanders and therefore, of course, had no duty of care. So how is it that the government would tell fibs to Torres Strait Islanders suggesting that they can help them protect against climate change by pursuing net zero, by imposing carbon taxes, by making us all buy electric vehicles? You can understand why the Torres Strait Islanders sue them, because the government have been telling them all this stuff. But then when they actually take the action and go to court, say, oh, no, we were just joking. We were just joking. It wasn't our real position. And to me, Andrew, this just shows this whole thing, this whole net zero agenda is not about changing the climate. It's about increasing the size of the state. It's about entrenching the Labor Party in government and in control, ultimately, of your lives. And to summarise it all, net zero is just a scam.
Oh, look, I would also say there's a religious impulse there, Matt. I think people genuinely think they're doing, being good. the Christian God is gone.
Some do.
So they were going for the
Some
green
do.
God as well. And I think
I'm a bit more cynical of the Labor Party, Andrew. I've seen them up close. I think they're just pursuing power. Power. I don't know if some I'll give you due. Some are genuinely very concerned, but others, I think, it's.
No, I'm not going to argue that. But I need to talk about another con, Matt, related. The Albanese government has promised to spend, I mean, I had to double check this today because I keep thinking my mind must be misremembering, $27 billion on green energy schemes and what it calls its Future Made in Australia scheme. Now, today, Energy Minister Chris Bowen said he was giving $171 million of presumably this Future Made in Australia money to a company based in China, a company backed by Chinese money and Japanese funds to build solar panels in the Hunter Valley. Here he is.
A future made in Australia, a future made in the Hunter takes a big step forward today. Where we're standing today will be the Hunter Valley Solar Foundry. It will produce 800,000 modules each year.
M.Canavan giving a Chinese company $171 million to build solar panels here and calling it a future made in Australia. Is that a good use of our money?
No, it's not, Andrew. I'd like to support Australian manufacturing. It's just very depressing that basically all Australian manufacturing now requires a form of government assistance and handouts to survive because we've destroyed this nation's energy competitiveness. We used to have some of the lowest power prices in the world and now they're well above average, much higher than our competitors in this region. Shouldn't be the case given our energy resources, but look, I would like to think this is going to lead to some kind of renaissance in Australian manufacturing. I don't think $170 million is going to cut it. Keep in mind, Andrew, the Chinese government spends over $400 billion a year supporting its industry. That's a figure from a Labor think tank called the McKell Institute. And we just don't seem to be doing anything to combat that threat. This has all happened on a day when another Australian manufacturer has gone out of business, a caravan manufacturer in Queensland. They've said that they can't, or the caravan industry have said they can't compete against Chinese imports. The cost of doing things here in this country is way out of whack. And it's going to continue like that unless we focus on bringing those costs down. So the solution to get manufacturing in this country is not to hand out more taxpayer money. It is to focus first on lowering power prices. And that's why the Liberal and National parties have said we're going to dump the net zero objective so we can focus on an objective of lowering power prices. That should be the primary goal of how we run our energy system. But right now, the Labor Party, in league with the Greens, is running our energy system to pursue net zero emissions, not lower power bills for Australian families and businesses.
It's true. It's true. M.Canavan, thank you so much for your time. After the break, Donald Trump fights claims of a war crime after a boat is blown up twice. Or has the media again jumped the shark?